City of Salem, Massachusetts, the City Council on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, met in the Council Chamber on June 12, 2024 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the fiscal year 25 operating budget meeting for the Health Department and also a capital improvement plan, 5-year capital improvement plan, acceptance of new revolving funds, Charlotte Fortin Park, annual revolving funds approval, fiscal year 25 general fund capital bond order, fiscal year 25 water sewer bond, short-term CIP appropriations, receipts reserved CIP appropriations, retained earnings CIP appropriations, free cash CIP appropriations, and any other miscellaneous orders or appropriations. Notice of this meeting was posted on June 6, 2024 at 6:56 p.m. and this meeting is being recorded. And joining us tonight from the Administration and Finance Committee, we have Councilor Prosnewski, Councilor Stott, Councilor Gerslow, and from the Committee of the Whole, we have Councilor Masillo. Also joining us tonight is Dave Greenbaum, our health agent. We have James LeBlanc, our Director of Capital Planning, Anna Friedman, our Finance Director, Lisa Peterson, our Chief of Staff, and also Mayor Pingallo. And welcome, everyone. We are almost there. These public meetings are for the financial review of best practice and to learn about the departments and how they utilize funds. To view the full budget, please go to salemma.gov/FY25. The homepage also includes, towards the bottom of the mayor's statement, a link to the budget in brief, which is a very helpful summary. And when you come up to present, please tell us about what your department does, anything you'd like to highlight, any significant changes in your budget, and any capital projects you'd like to discuss. The capital improvement plans are in the larger tab, section 7 in the front of the book, and I will reference it by section for the 5-year capital plan. And tonight we are starting with the Health Department, and welcome Dave Greenbaum. And this is section 16, and the budget summary is page 474. And just want to give us a second to get to that place in the book. Thank you, and again, welcome. And whatever you'd like to tell us about your department.
So the mission of the Health Department is to deliver public health services to residents, businesses, and visitors to benefit the culturally diverse population of the City of Salem. Public health includes preventing and monitoring disease, providing health education, enforcing public health codes and regulations. This mission is accomplished through the core values of public health, which are to prevent, promote, and protect. So we do a variety of health inspections in restaurants. We do pre-rental inspections. We do complaint-based inspections for housing. We do nuisance inspections around rodent control, trash. We do summer camp inspections, tanning bed inspections, pool inspections. So we do numerous inspections. We also enforce the short-term rental ordinance. So we do a lot. We don't have any capital improvement this year, so I don't have anything to add in that respect.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we know you are a busy department. One thing I was curious about, and yes, I mean, the list of everything you do and the work you do, it's really impressive. Two things I was curious about. I was curious at how the opioid settlement funds, the plans for that. I know you have a survey and that it's becoming in quite a substantial amount of funds. I'd be interested in anything you'd like to offer about that.
So we did do a community survey. It closed last Friday. We're in the process of analyzing those results, but I can give you a little bit of a snapshot. We had 111 responses. 109 of those were English speakers, 2 were Spanish speakers. A couple of highlights were people would like to see money spent in treating people with opioid use disorder and getting people into treatment. So we'll hope to have some more high-level information on the survey in the coming days, but those are a couple couple of the highlights that I have tonight. Some of the projects that we're looking to work on is some harm reduction projects, putting naloxone boxes out in the community to get people naloxone if they want it. A number of our neighboring communities have done that and have been very successful with it. So we're looking at that. We're trying to do some other smaller projects, getting vouchers for travel for people to go get treatment if they would like. Maybe doing some people with lived experiences, going out and talking to people with opioid use disorder and encouraging them to go and giving them some sort of a stipend to do that. So those are just a few of the harm reduction angles that we're looking at.
Great, thank you for that. Yes, I also saw that you had listed, in line with that, youth substance use and reduction projects with Lynn and Marblehead and Swampscott.
Yes.
Yes, so I was curious about that.
So we have a multi-community grant that we don't hold. It's held by the city of Lynn, I believe, and they work with a coordinator to oversee that, and we're doing a number of different things around youth prevention. And working with the school department to try and get the word out about the substance use in the schools at an early age so that we can prevent substance use as kids age.
Thank you. And one last thought that I had also was on the Narcan training that I've done. I know it's done in partnership with the Community Impact Unit. They had done one at a neighborhood association meeting, and since then a few residents have asked me about being able to take that, and it wasn't complicated. It was pretty simplistic considering how impactful that can be, to save a life. So I just was wondering, about upcoming, plans and how we can help get the word out about them, not only on a website, but we have a lot of, council newsletters or neighborhood associations, and just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, so we've done a number of Narcan trainings through the health department in partnership with some of our organizations like Healthy Streets, and we will continue to do them. We don't have any planned at this point, but we try to do them a couple strategic times a year. We're coming into one now as we go into the beginning of the tourist season. We like to do one now, and then towards Halloween as we go into the busiest time of year, in particular with the businesses, so that they're aware if they have any issues in their business. We offer them the opportunity to have Narcan in their business, so if there is a possibility that they need it, they have it on hand, and so we'll be planning those in the coming weeks. And once we have dates and things like that, we'll certainly let everyone know and get them out there so that people know where to go and how to attend them.
Great, thank you. That's a great idea about the businesses as well. Yes. Great. Any questions from the councilors? Councilor Masillo?
Thank you, Chair. I noticed the expected increase in certificate of fitness inspections. We just had one. I understand you're sending out letters to all of the property owners. So it was a pretty good inspection. It was the guy was great. We did fail a couple things, but it was easy to upload the videos to show that it was corrected. So I was impressed by the way that was handled, and everything went through fine. Just one question, do you ever, or would you ever consider putting the list of what you're looking for in an inspection in a public, or is that not done?
So we enforce the state sanitary code is what we're looking at. It's a pretty extensive code. Yeah. We might be able to narrow it down to a checklist, but we're looking at all of that stuff. So we could potentially create a checklist and look to see if there isn't something out there that the state has already for landlords to, go by.
I'll tell you the one thing that was the trickiest thing to fix was the water temperature, the hot water temperature. And so not only when we finally got it within the range, getting the video to prove that turned out to be too long. So then we had to anyways, it was just a lot to upload to show that we had it within the range. But anyways, I was thinking while he was going through, it would have been it would have been nice to have that list of what he's looking for. But then again, you know, people may try to get away with things. I don't know. I was curious what the public-facing theory is.
People have asked for that in the past, so we can certainly look to see if we can't get some sort of a guideline or a checklist to provide to landlords if people are looking for it.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Thank you. Any other questions from the councilors? Councilor Prosnewski.
Good evening, David.
Good evening.
Nice to see you here again.
You as well.
When I see David, I see 2020 and what he went through during COVID and how we successfully made it through with this community in a way that was much better than a lot of other communities have fared based on what you've done. So, you walk on water almost in my book. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have easy questions. Number one is I see that you're going to be fully staffed with more inspectors. Are you looking at a certain goal for them, or are they just going to be able to pick up the things that you couldn't do? Is there something that you're going to be focusing on with your new crew or your added crew?
So the added crew is a grant, if that's what you're referring to. They're a regional staff that is part of, that covers 8 communities. So we don't have them permanently as our full-time staff. They work to benefit the grants, the communities in the grant. My full-time city staff, we are fully staffed. We have a new staff member who is primarily focusing on certificates of fitness and short-term rentals to enforce those ordinances, and that's going to be their focus. And then the other staff members will focus on the things that they should have been focusing on when they were doing the short-term rentals and the certificates of fitness. So that new staff member will be doing that primarily.
Seems as though the roles are sort of changing as time goes by.
Correct.
The easy question I have is the beaches. I know that we see in the news all the time about them being tested and whether or not they're open or not. Does that fall on your hands, or is that something that the state does?
No, we do that in-house weekly, Tuesday mornings or afternoons, depending upon the high tide. We test the beaches. We submit the samples to the lab, and then we get results on Wednesdays, usually depending upon time, usually the next day, midday.
So that's what I was going to ask you is what days do you test? How many beaches do you test, and how quickly can we find out whether the water that we have out here is safe enough to swim in? And if anybody has any questions, how to contact you?
Yes, so like I said, we test on Tuesdays. We get the results on Wednesdays. We generally post the beach on Wednesdays if it's a failure. We'll retest the following week. They can certainly reach out to the health department. All the results are posted on the state's website, and they go up immediately once the failure is noted, and it's there until we note to them to take it down. So,
and have you found a trend this year compared to other years? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What are the factors that are involved in how safe we are to swim?
So yesterday was our first beach testing day, so we haven't seen any trends this year yet, but there's numerous factors that go into whether or not a beach water quality is good or bad. Bather load, runoff from rain, animals on the beach, so there's a variety of things that go into that. We'll know more as the next few weeks unfold if we're going to have a tough beach season or a good beach season. Good weather like this, it means good beach water. But, if we have a lot of rain, then we generally have a lot of failures.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. Through you to Mr. Greenbaum. Similar question along the beach line. Instead of calling you, will that information be posted on your website?
I have to check if we post it on our website. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know the state has a beaches website dedicated to that, and people can, search Salem and get all the beach information on the state website.
So it used to be linked on the city website and under your department for beaches, but the link is broken now. So I would.
It's a new website. That's why. Yeah, we'll make sure it's updated.
Okay, but thank you for all you do. I know we've been chatting a lot lately, especially about our little visitors. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the councilors? Okay. So, Councilor Stott, and the budget summary is on page 474.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the Health Department budget personnel line item of $626,017, expenditure line item of $126,639 for a Health Department total of $752,656.
Second.
Councilor Stott moves to approve the Health Department personnel budget in the amount of $626,017. The expenditures in an amount of $126,639 for a Health Department total of $752,656. Seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show, I say 3 hands plus my own. The motion carries 4-0. And I also want to say thank you, and as Councilor Prosnewski said, your leadership through COVID and your department, the health and wellness coordinator, everyone that really does a super job, and you're appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Have a good night.
You too. It'll take 1 second to move on to the next round of approvals. Okay. Our first item is to establish a revolving fund account for Charlotte Fortin Park in accordance with Mass General Law. Any discussion on this, Ms. Friedman, or any questions from the council?
I can give just a very brief overview. So just in general, revolving funds are typically a helpful accounting mechanism for certain municipal activities where the activity may be somewhat unpredictable. And so Mass General Law allows a municipality to set up a revolving fund where you can take in the fees associated with that certain sort of space or activity. In this instance, the request is for Charlotte Fortin Park, and where you could take in revenues associated with that, and then take those revenues and reinvest those in the space or the activity. And so this is this fund would help maintain the park going forward based on things like potential rental fees, et cetera.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the council? No. So this is item number 1. No backup here. It's number 212. Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval to establish the revolving funds account for Charlotte Fortin Park in accordance with Mass General Law.
Second.
Councilor Stott motions to approve to establish a revolving fund account for Charlotte Fortin Park in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E, 1/2, seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show, I see 3 hands plus my own. The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have item number 211, which is to establish a revolving funds for fiscal year 25 in the amount of $1,992,000. Ms. Friedman?
Just briefly on this as well, this is an annual sort of technical order that comes before council. Revolving funds currently under Mass General Law are required to be annually reauthorized to exist. And so the funds that are on that list are funds that have been previously established, and this would continue to allow those funds to exist. And the it would provide an expenditure ceiling. They're not technically appropriated, but the authorization provides an expenditure ceiling where funds could not be spent in excess of those ceilings that are noted on the council order.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Prosnowski.
Just one, Anna. Under bike sharing, it says to receive and expend revenue. Are we getting revenue from the bike sharing? It's on the second page on the very bottom. Fund number 2383.
I can pull that up very briefly. If you just give me 10 seconds, I can double check to confirm the type of revenue that's coming in for that.
Not that I'm looking for a number. I didn't know that we got any revenue at all from our bike sharing.
And again, that's number 211 for those looking.
It does, so yes, it looks like we have not received reimbursement revenues more recently, but there were payments that the city received in 2018 and 2019 for this program. And so to date, the fund has received over $12,500. I would need to follow up with the planning department just to confirm exactly how that's being administered.
That's coming out of the blue bikes?
That year, I think that's coming from, that may have been from the previous programs when there was revenue coming in to support the program. The Blue Bike program, I think, is going directly to Blue Bikes.
Yes, and there is still a small balance to that fund, and so this authorization would allow to continue to spend down any funds that were previously collected in this fund.
Just to carry it over, just in case we find a program that actually does give us some revenue.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jerslow.
Thank you, Chair. Anna, the Fund 2452, parking and launch fees charged at McCabe Marina and Winter Island, aren't the launch fees, isn't that through the state? And doesn't that go into the Harbor Master Fund, and he can use that money for only certain things? I know the parking would go into the recreation director and the city, but the launch fees, I thought that was a state, that goes right directly to the state. I could be, I'm just asking.
I may need to double check on that. The language around the authorization, I think, is intended to capture whatever types of revenues would be appropriate to take in there. They may not be taking in all of those specific types of revenue currently, but I would want to double check on your question just to confirm where those launch fees are being taken in. Looking at it right now, it looks like there are various types of revenue that are coming into the fund. It looks like marina fees. I would have to connect with the harbor master just to confirm exactly the difference between the fees that are coming in here and then the fees that go into there is actually another revolving fund on there, I believe, for the harbor master. And there's a receipts reserve fund for him as well.
Because I asked if we could, the launch fees are ridiculously low. They're $5. A lot of people from out of town has come just to launch their boat in Salem. So I thought maybe a little revenue you could, put the fees up. But I was told that that's regulated by the state. Like a lot of people from Marblehead, actually, there's only one area they can launch and they have to go at the tide. So everybody comes to Winter Island. And that's some way you could raise some revenue to go back into the parks, Winter Island and McCabe. At $5, it's very low. So, but I didn't know, that's what I was told, that it was regulated by the state, but thank you for checking.
Yeah, we could definitely check. It does look like there are Winter Island ramp fees that have previously gone into this fund.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors with questions? Okay, and again, this is number 211. Counselor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I make a motion to recommend approval to establish the revolving funds for fiscal year 25 in the amount of $1,992,000.
Second.
Counselor Stott moves to approve the established revolving funds for fiscal year 25 in the amount of $1,992,000, seconded by Counselor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Next, we have item number 203, which is the fiscal year 2025 General Fund CIP bond order in the amount of $5,828,761. Yes. Ms. Friedman?
This order would authorize and appropriate to borrow funds for the projects listed on that bond order, which are projects that are included in the recommended FY25 capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No? Okay. And again, this is number 203. Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the order in front of us, which is to authorize and approve the fiscal year 2025 General Fund CIP bond order in the amount of $5,828,761.
Second.
Okay. Councilor Stott motions to approve the authorization and appropriate the fiscal year 2025 General Fund CIP bond order in the amount of $5,828,761. Seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Okay, let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Okay. Next, we have the authorization and appropriation of the fiscal year 2025 water sewer CIP bond order. Ms. Friedman?
And this, very similarly to the previous order, this is for the water and sewer specific projects that are recommended in the FY25 capital improvement program. It's done via a separate order because this authorization is under a separate Mass General law.
Okay, thank you. And again, this is number 205. Any questions from the council? No, seeing none. Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of the order in front of us. That is to authorize and appropriate the fiscal year 2025 water sewer CIP bond order in the amount of $2,200,000.
Second.
Councilor Stott motions to approve and to authorize and appropriate fiscal year 2025 water sewer CIP bond order in the amount of $2,200,000. Seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Next, we have an order to appropriate short-term fiscal year 2025 CIP projects. Yes, Ms. Friedman? Oh, and also that is number 204.
This order would appropriate funding from the short-term capital improvement account, which is funded with an annual amount from the city's free cash each year. And so this is basically what we call pay-as-you-go or cash-funded capital projects. So because the city has set up this fund, it allows the city to borrow less than otherwise would, resulting in a lower impact on taxpayers to afford the capital improvement the capital projects needed by the city. And so this would, this is the amount requested to be authorized for FY25 pursuant to the capital plan for next year.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No, seeing none. Again, this is number 204. Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval. The order that is in front of us at $3,253,363 is appropriated as part of the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan.
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Stott motions to appropriate the short-term fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan projects in the amount of $3,253,363. Seconded by Councillor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show. I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Next, we have item number 206, an appropriation of $435,000 from retained earnings for water and sewer to fund the fiscal year 25 capital improvement plan. Ms. Friedman?
So this order is to several. It's going to die again. Fund several projects that are included in the FY25 capital improvement plan. From retained earnings from the water and sewer fund. Retained earnings are the enterprise funds such as water and sewer at the end of every fiscal year. If those funds have taken in more revenue above projections and have spent less than planned, that sort of surplus, so to speak, would close to retained earnings. And so the city is then able to leverage those funds to reinvest. They're considered one-time resources to reinvest into capital projects, which again also reduces future debt that would then have to be afforded by ratepayers. So it's helpful that these funds do have retained earnings, and the city is able to leverage these for some of these smaller projects. So that's what this would do for FY25.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No. Again, this is item number 206. Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval that the sum of $435,000 appropriated from retained earnings water sewer account to the following accounts in the fiscal year 2025 CIP plan.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Stott. Motions to appropriate the retained earnings of $435,000 from the water and sewer to fund the fiscal year 25 capital improvement plan. Seconded by Councillor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show. I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Next, we have item number 209, to appropriate the amount of $63,155 from retained earnings PEG account for the fiscal year 25 CIP. Yeah. Ms. Friedman?
So this order is similar to the last one, would also access retained earnings that are in a different enterprise fund, the PEG Access Fund. There are retained earnings in that fund from some payments that were made a couple years ago pursuant to our public access television agreement. And this is seeking to access those funds to reinvest them in improving and upgrading our infrastructure related to switches and wireless, particularly at the school department.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No? Again, this is item number 209. Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval. The order in front of us, that is to appropriate the sum of $63,155 from retained earnings PEG access funds to the capital improvement project plan.
Second.
Councillor Stott's motions for approval to appropriate the amount of $63,155 from the retained earnings PEG access funds for fiscal year 2025 CIP funds. seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries 4-0. Next, we have the appropriation of $100,000 from the general fund, free cash, to the CIP projects for fiscal year 25. Yes, Ms. Friedman?
So this item is actually very similar to the prior order that appropriated from the short-term capital fund for capital projects. This is doing essentially something very similar, but first it's capitalizing the short-term capital fund with additional funding from free cash to then afford these 2 projects. And these 2 projects are also included in the FY25 capital improvement plan.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the council? No, seeing none, again, this is item number 207. Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the order in front of us that the sum of $100,000 is transferred from the general fund balance for free cash and appropriated in the capital improvement fund for fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan.
Second.
Thank you. So Councilor Stott motions to approve the amount of $100,000 be transferred from the general fund balance reserved for free cash and appropriated in the capital improvement funds for the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan. Seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have an appropriation at the sum of $85,000 appropriated from the receipts reserved for appropriation account to be transferred to the Parks and Rec Golf Course Equipment account for costs associated with the replacement of the Groundmaster 4300 mower. And I'd like to clarify, this is in pursuant of the fiscal year 25 capital improvement plan. So I'd like to clarify that. That's not on the material here. Yes.
So this item appropriates from receipts reserved for appropriation, which is a type of account that is where funds are taken in for a particular municipal activity, in this instance for those that are utilizing the municipal golf course. And so those funds are set aside, and then to utilize those funds require authorization from council. And so this would authorize the use of $85,000 from those funds to make the improvement for this a piece of equipment needed for the golf course for next year.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No. Seeing none, again, this is item number 208. Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of the order in front of us. That is $85,000 is appropriated from the receipts reserved appropriation account to be transferred to the Parks and Rec Golf Course Equipment account for costs associated with the Groundmaster mower in accordance with the recommendation of the CIP plan.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Stott motions to approve the appropriation of $85,000 from the receipts reserved account to the Parks and Rec Golf Course for equipment in pursuant of the fiscal year 25 CIP. Seconded by Councilor Prosnewski. All in favor? Let the record show I see 3 hands plus my own. The motion carries 4-0. Right. And last, we have a possible recommendation for the fiscal year 25 proposed 5-year CIP plan for 2025 through 2029. And the CIP section in the book is section 7 in the larger tabbed section in the front of the books. Ms. Friedman, would you like to offer any comment or feedback on this, or?
Sure. So the 5-year capital plan, as reviewed sort of piece by piece via the meetings with the departments, primarily, excuse me, the 5-year capital plan includes both the appropriations that were just reviewed to fund the capital plan, also includes other items that are funded through other means, both for next year and then for the future years in the 5-year capital plan. Those are just placeholders for future planning purposes, but the capital plan is sort of a living document that changes constantly and is updated annually. And so the 5-year plan is intended to demonstrate the list of items that are authorized for the upcoming fiscal year, and then the plans for the future years as well.
Thank you.
And if there are any questions on any specific projects that we somehow didn't cover previously, happy to provide whatever information we can.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions from the council? No? Councillor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that the fiscal year 2025 proposed 5-year capital improvement plan for 2025 to 2029 be amended by removing the capital request line item Washington at Essex fence installation.
Thank you. And which, do you want to clarify which department?
Sure. So you first see it on page 60 under the Department of Transportation. It has a fiscal year 25 funding source of ARPA, and the amount is $50,000.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I make the motion clear. So this is to remove the line item. Bear with me one second. This is in the
Page
transportation.
260.
Yeah, I'm on 260. I'm looking at the, oh, okay. Yes, I have it. I have it here. So we have a motion from Councillor Stott to remove an item, the Washington and Essex fence installation, which is indicated here for ARPA funds for department request for fiscal year 25 column. And yes, it is under transportation section. And to clarify, when we do vote on the item for the CIP for the 5-year plan, there won't be a total amount reference because, as our finance director had said, this is a living document just presenting, a vision for a path forward, and this is just a guide going forward. And do we have any other motions? I will second that motion. So this is a vote to approve the amendment that Councillor Stott has made to remove the item for the Washington and Essex fence installation in the amount of $50,000 on page 260 under transportation. Seconded by Councillor Merkel. All in favor?
Can we have
oh, sorry, under discussion. Sorry about that. Under discussion.
Thank you, if I may. So I'd like to begin by saying some reasons for my motion by amending or removing this line item. We're not removing any funds because we can't, but I guess it can sum up into 3 parts as to why I'm making this motion: the funding source, transparency, and pedestrian safety. I'm going to start with the funding source, which will also explain why we're not making any fiscal amounts. It's because it doesn't matter. ARPA funds are appropriated by administration. They are not approved by council, which is slightly different than how we normally do business. But this line item is in front of us as it's part of the capital plan, which we do as council a review and approve. But I would like to approve it with that line stricken, because as just noted a few seconds ago, the capital improvement plan is a vision for a path forward. And that vision for me does not include fencing up our pedestrians. So I'm making a motion to remove it, knowing full well that it really means nothing. other than a public, I think this is a bad idea, which brings me to the second point, which is transparency. Why are the ARPA monies in front of us if we don't approve them? Well, transparency, which is great. The annual CIP plan is the only time we have insight into the ARPA funding allocation in the big picture. For some context for those that are newer here, the ARPA funding was a far-reaching federal COVID relief measure that included, as one component, an allocation of federal aid to cities and towns to help them recover from the pandemic and rebuild communities. Salem received a total of $26.1 million in direct federal aid and another $8.3 million in state aid, along with $9 million received for the schools. There were guidelines around what this funding can be spent on and when, and while the administration may think this qualifies in those guidelines, and perhaps it does if you're looking at this black and white, I don't think it falls under our community's priorities that were presented to us, the council, and the community. Throughout the summer and fall of 2021, the city conducted public engagement process to gather input from residents and businesses about how to prioritize our ARPA spending. The results were presented to council in 2021, and in sum, they said that Salem's pandemic recovery funding will focus on providing services and assistance to those that were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, will build resiliency for future pandemic and be financially sustainable, will enhance or complement state and federal programs, and use recovery funds in creative ways to address local challenges. We will be flexible and transparent with regular reviews to determine if needs have changed. Reports will be posted publicly. We will have public forums every June and December each year of the recovery program with programmatic updates. We will review and update the recovery principles, and a recovery website with all reports and plans will be easily accessible in both English and Spanish. So I'm understanding that we have had a few administration changes, but not too much of a shakeup and staffing changes throughout this time. But to say on one hand that we're sharing this info in the capital improvement budget for transparency purposes, but refusing to have any sort of deeper conversation about this project and how it falls into ARPA is disheartening. And while this project is listed under the Transportation Department, it's actually a request from our police department. But not once was this brought up during our committee meetings with the chief of police. There was an excellent opportunity at our Haunted Happenings recap meeting in February, where many opportunities and challenges were discussed. Yet there was no discussion of this. There was an opportunity while the department budget was presented to us here in A&F, yet there was no conversation. Instead, this was listed as a transportation project, and I will say it did not really feel fully supported by the transportation department when we were questioning it. So enough about kind of my logistical talks. I will just say the fence is horrible, at least the one that was presented to the SRA, which is the only piece of information we have to go on here. Since then, though, it seems the idea has kind of changed and mutilated. It will be removed for most of the year. It will be lower. It will be this or it will be that. But really, all we have to go on are the renderings in the letter that were submitted to the SRA, which as a pedestrian in this city or in any city, that rendering terrifies me. I truly feel it will be causing more issues than solving with that solution. I also want to say that Townhouse Square needs a solution. It's horrible. It is not safe. There's a poorly sited left turn lane from Essex Street onto Washington. There are double crosswalks. There's a constant stream of pedestrians, impatient, frustrated drivers that control one-ton machines that can easily hurt many people. But that fence is not the solution, and it needs something greater and something better than a fence. One last note that I wanted to make was that I was listening to a recent DRB meeting while the outside dining applications were being reviewed. I will connect the two, I promise. And this particular outside dining area was for the Red Line Cafe, which, as we all know, is on the pedestrian-only portion of Essex Street. Surprisingly, the conversation was focused around vehicular traffic, and if we needed to add protection for those dining outside. Protection from vehicles on a pedestrian-only portion of Essex Street. I'm not saying that there are not a good amount of vehicles that go down that portion of Essex Street or all of the pedestrian portion, and there are. So it was an okay conversation to have, but it was interesting that that was the conversation that we have. Vehicular traffic, and if we need to add protection to those dining on a pedestrian-only section. I'm sharing this because you probably missed the meeting. I think I was the only one that listened to all of the outside dining application meetings. And two, where are our priorities? Instead of having the conversation on why there are so many vehicles driving down the pedestrian-only portion of the street, including our own police department, it's again, we were saying, how do we corral the pedestrians and the diners? It's backwards. Our planning and priorities are backwards, and if we continue to approve projects with this thinking, we will continue to stay stagnant and not protect our vulnerable. So that is why I'm making the amendment this evening.
Thank you. I really appreciated that very, very thorough overview of your motion. And I will say, as I do understand that intersection very well. I walk through there every day in October, and it is an issue that two crosswalks are so close together, because when a police details managing one, it's just an awkward distance away that pedestrians are stepping off. But to your point, I hadn't heard about the plans for the fence either. I didn't hear of any presentation. We didn't hear from the transportation department, and I agree that there were opportunities, for the police to have a discussion about it, and also, our traffic and parking commission. I don't recall them having, input, and so all your points are very well taken. And I would have appreciated also heard about more planning, what went into this, what data supported it, and alternatives, because that intersection is dangerous. So have we looked at all ideas that can be done? Like you said, there's a left turn there that's problematic. I agree with all those points. And I also understood, I certainly got a lot of emails about this, and I believe all the counselors did. And I understand the public's concerns that they didn't that it just seemed to come out of left field, that all of a sudden, and it's a large amount of money. And is it part of what ARPA funds, were meant to be utilized for? So I am in agreement. Any other comments from counselors? Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. I also agree with this, obviously. I look at ARPA funds as an investment in the community, and I think of it as looking back in 20 to 30 years and reviewing how we spent that money. It should be spent on mental health supports, which we've spent it on. It should be spent on recovering from COVID, which we have spent it on. Stormwater issues, coastal flooding, infrastructure projects, things that will last, things that will make a difference in the city. In 20 to 30 years, I don't think we're going to be looking back at a fence that's still standing there. $50,000 of ARPA money could have been spent on a study to understand how to make that intersection better, safer. I will also say that we asked for data on crash data in that intersection, and I still haven't seen anything to support this kind of a move. This is not the only double crosswalk in the city. There's one on Derby Street near Clop Alley, same sort of thing. But we're not fencing off those two crosswalks. I just think that this is poorly spent ARPA funds, and I think that there's so many projects in the city that money could go towards, and this just doesn't fill the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Posnowski.
Looking at it from a safety perspective, I agree with that. The fence isn't the way to go. I don't want to see a fence in that intersection, but I think I've professed this before. I don't think there should be a crosswalk there at all. That is the dangerous part. That's the reason for the fence. That's the reason for the discussion. It's all about pedestrian safety. And if we're going to be spending money on pedestrian safety, I don't think that we should actually be talking about where the money's coming from. The priority is getting it done, and getting it done right away. I spent over 40 years directing traffic in that intersection. I think Councilor Gerslow will probably tell you that she spent another 35 years directing traffic in that intersection. It's not about the data. It's about experience in directing traffic and experiencing the close calls, the things that weren't reported over there during the busy time. And the reason that I'm saying this, and I profess this profoundly, is because that is a very dangerous intersection when it's busy and both crosswalks are being used. Pedestrians have to run out of the way, especially in the second crosswalk. Police officers are dodging cars. They don't have eyes in back of their head when they're looking down one side of Washington Street and pedestrians are crossing on the other side. It's very difficult to keep swiveling around and around and around. A fence isn't the fix. The fix is preventing people from crossing over. And the only effective foot traffic would be those people that are coming into the square from Essex Street from the direction of the Witch House. They would have to cross Essex Street to the big crosswalk and then cross over. I've spoken to the mayor about other plans on being able to facilitate safety, maybe widening that crosswalk, maybe raising that crosswalk a little bit, maybe putting in a temporary pedestrian light, not a traffic light, but a pedestrian light that pedestrians would adhere to. Something has to be done at that intersection because things get really dicey there when it's busy weekends, and the weekends are getting busier and busier, earlier and earlier in the year. All summer long, those are busy. And if there's any one intersection that is dangerous for pedestrians, it's probably that one. So if we're talking about eliminating money that's going to stall the safety factor, I'm not for that. I want to see this. I want to see this go through. I don't like the fence. I think some kind of a barrier or notice or something that looks good, that's friendly, and it's obvious to people that are coming up Essex Street that this is not a place to cross. They can cross Essex Street to the main crosswalk is an easier fix. It doesn't have to be this dirty word fence that we've talked about. But priority is pedestrian safety. And taking the money away right now may compromise some of that now. So I am not for taking that money out. Thank you.
Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Markle. I'd just like to reiterate what I said at the very beginning, that none of this is in our control. The mayor tomorrow can go and appropriate $50,000 for ARPA money for a fence on Washington Street. I am saying in the plan that's in front of us this evening, I don't like that line item and I want to remove it. The ARPA funds are outside of our control, but right now, the plan in front of us says Washington at Essex fence installation. If you don't feel that that is the appropriate solution and use, that shouldn't be in our plan, because our plan is, what was the word? A vision for a path forward. And to me, a vision for a path forward is not corralling with the fence, the pedestrians. Again, it's not delaying anything. ARPA funds can be appropriated however the administration so chooses.
Thank you. And to Councillor Stott's point, she's 100% correct. The boundaries for ARPA funds are timelines, and so this doesn't, forbade the use of ARPA funds. There's other path forwards for using these funds, and we're not ruling on those tonight. And also, I really appreciate this discussion, and I think the discussion we're having makes the point that we need more discussion, and that's what didn't happen before we all heard about the fence. So I think that kind of makes that a point, and I am also, in agreement to Councillor Stott's point that this doesn't say, how ARPA funds can be used. It's that we would want to take out the line item saying that these would be used for a fence that hasn't had enough discussion, it seems, to a lot of people. Thank you. Mayor Pengallo.
Thanks, councilors, for the opportunity to speak on this briefly. You know, the ARPA funding that was provided to the city, captured within that idea of creative responses to challenges facing the community, that has changed over the years. And for the early years of ARPA, that certainly was related to providing PPE to our businesses, to providing direct financial support to festivals and special events. But as our economy has picked back up, we've also utilized it to protect the public. ARPA funds, not just under this administration, but the previous administration, have supported the purchase of equipment in a variety of respects. That's purchased light towers, and it wasn't used for the purchase of crash-proof vehicle barricades for October, but the cities and the police department and our partners with NEMLEC and the fire department regularly purchase equipment, which is what this fence is intended to be, for the protection of the public, specifically in October. And so I just want to just speak for a moment about this. You know, if you look at Townhouse Square right now, the plastic barricades are out there, and the details have started, if not today, they're starting tomorrow because the crowds are picking up. For many years, as Councilor Prosniewski has said, for many years, the police department has deployed hundreds of barricades across downtown Salem in October, especially in the busiest days. And those are intended to protect people from cars, to protect people from one another, and to ensure that public safety vehicles and personnel can move through spaces when they need to be able to move through spaces. That location has had barricades for many, many years now. And the barricades that are placed there are freestanding barricades. When I was the chief of staff, I fielded calls every October when those barricades fell into the bike lane, fell into the crosswalk, fell into the street, and fell across the sidewalk. They were shattered and spread down the street. Our intention here, and what was presented at the SRA probably was not a good drawing. It was a quick drawing that was intended to get some generalized feedback. That feedback was received, and the plan was modified. As has been expressed to councilors, the plan was modified to be clearly a temporary structure that replaces the freestanding barricades and can be affixed into the ground to make sure that they do not fall over into the crosswalk, into the sidewalk, into the roadway, or into the bike lane. I think that, you know, this administration cares deeply about pedestrian safety, and we wouldn't advance something that we felt put public safety at risk. I'm proud of the work that we're trying to advance through the traffic calming program, through the intersection projects that we're trying to complete at Jefferson and Wilson, the work that's going to be happening around the Common, the work that's happening on Ford Avenue, and our advocacy for Safe Streets for All, both through the Safe Streets for All action plan that we are advancing, and through my participation in the Mayor's Institute on Pedestrian Safety. I wouldn't put forward a proposal if I felt it was going to endanger the safety of pedestrians. I think based on what has been implemented at that location and throughout our downtown for decades in the successful operation of our public safety activity in October is a demonstration that we have systems that work, that can keep people safe. We'll provide you the data on the crashes that have happened there. But to echo Councilor Prosniewski's point, you know, we're trying to prevent the crashes that haven't happened yet. And maybe part of that solution is looking deeper at that intersection for when we close Washington Street and how we implement raised crosswalks or additional controls around there. But this is intended to solve a problem that happens on very specific days, a very specific time of the year. It is not intended to be a permanent structure, and it's not intended to be a project. I would classify it as a piece of equipment. Just the same as a light tower, as a crash-proof barricade, as any other piece of equipment that we bring in October to make sure that people can visit and visit safely. I appreciate the discussion that's here, and I also appreciate if the council wants to remove from this plan, if they don't feel comfortable accepting a plan that has this in it. I know that a lot of time and discussion has been spent at the previous council committee meeting on this, and now at this meeting, and I hear the feedback. But I just wanted to provide some additional perspective on it because I know this has engendered a lot of interest in the broader community, and I just want to assure people, particularly folks who may be watching at home, that to characterize this as something that has not had a lot of thought or discussion, I would push back and say that the Halloween in October operations plan has had thought and discussion for almost 20 years now, and it evolves and it changes and we make modifications, but really it's something that's based on an extensive amount of experience from the people that have been on the ground in those departments trying to implement the work. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilor Gerslow.
Can I just throw my 2 cents in there? Would you be, I don't know how you could change this, but planters, would 2 planters on either side of the street? It's kind of a bump out on this side of the street. Would that be, would that be something like that? Maybe people don't like the look of a fence. I have no problem with the fence. Like Councilor Prasnewski said, we've been doing traffic, posts there for many years, and I have no problem with the fence because I know it is a safety issue, but I don't know if people just don't like the look of a fence, but maybe planters, there is enough room there. You can walk, it's wide enough, it's kind of bumped out there on either side. You could put planters in that kind of corral people more towards the other crosswalk. Just my 2 cents, but thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the good ideas. Okay, any more questions from the council? No? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to amend the recommendation for the proposed 5-year capital improvement plan for years 2025 to 29, removing the Washington and Essex fence installation that is marked for ARPA funds here for the amount of $50,000. Again, there will be no total amount that is altered. Seconded by Councilor Merkel. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so let the record show. I see 2 hands in favor and 2 opposed, so the motion does not carry. Okay. Do we have another motion? Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion to refer to Council a recommendation for approval of the fiscal year 25 proposed 5-year CIP plan, 2025 to 2029.
Second.
Councilor Stott motions for approval to refer back to the full council for the fiscal year 25 proposed 5-year capital improvement plan for the years 2025 to 2029, seconded by Councilor Prasnewski. All in favor? Let the record show. I see 3 hands plus my own. The motion carries 4-0. And again, thank you. As our last night of these meetings, I again want to really thank Anna Friedman and the finance team that has worked so hard on this, Mayor Pengallo, everyone in the city. A lot goes into the budget, and it's a lot of work. It's a heavy lift, and it's just been a great opportunity with all the departments coming in and getting to know them better, learn the work they're doing. And it's appreciated all the time, and the councilors too as well. Thank you. I'll entertain one more motion. Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I just wanted to say from the committee a thank you to you as well for leading us I think you did a fabulous job your first year as chair. I think it's now yours. Great job. So everything was, from the page numbers to the tabs, I appreciate all of the guidance. So thank you. And thank you to everyone from the city. Anna, as always, beautiful budget. Lisa, Dominic, everyone that has joined in from the department heads. I think budget, I may have said I was a little tired last night, but it really is a great part of the year. You learn so much about every department and everything that's done in the city. So with that, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, you really do. It's just great. It's a great learning experience. It's terrific. And yeah, my diligence for what page we're on came from my confusion last year of what page we were on. So thank you. I appreciate that. Councilor Prasnewski?
Before I second the adjournment, I also want to echo Councilor Stott's appreciation on what you've done. You've brought a lot of orderly, clear organization to this budget process this year. I think the public was much more understanding. You directed people on the exact pages, what to look for, and I know you spent an awful lot of time on your own time at home getting prepared for these meetings and making sure that everybody was on board and rowing in the right direction at the same time. So hats off to you. You did a great job, Chair Merkel, and thank you for making it easy on me. And with that, I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor? Great. Motion adjourned. Thanks.